This is Skipper Chris, and what I have for you today are some precision engineered skipping stones sent to me from a fellow YouTuber and stone skipper all the way from China. Let's take a look at what's inside. Alright, so here we have our large size and small size stones branded with his logo and website. You should check out his YouTube channel at SkipperStonesMaker. He's got a few videos there of these being used in competition, as well as some in-depth just showing the geometry and shapes behind them. So the small stones, really small compared to anything that I'm usually skipping, but a really pleasing feel in the hand. Nice geometry. The surface finish on these is impeccable. They are perfectly smooth and crisp with nice sharp edges that I assume will provide a really good release on the water when these are skipped. We've got these 3 finger holds here, radially symmetric about the rock, with a nice fillet on the leading edge and a smaller fillet on the trailing edge. These of course are designed to be skipped right-handed, so on release you can snap the rock very effectively. Most interesting thing about these rocks is the bottom geometry. If we put this down on the table, we can see that it's not flat. It's actually really rockered. And so these are convex by a few millimeters at least on the bottom, and really smooth, consistent radius on the whole thing. Not sure how that's going to impact the skips, although from my experience, rocks with a convex bottom have very consistent skipping qualities, but are sometimes a little hard to throw at high speed. So we'll see how these work. The edges are really sharp, which I assume is going to provide us a really good release of the water, and really consistent. So there's no fillet or chamfer on this edge. It's just purely crisp and sharp. The top edge is dead flat. If you put that down, sits flat, no rocker whatsoever. The most impressive thing with these is the consistency. Each one of these rocks is almost identical. There's no surface imperfections or flaws that I can see. These rocks are cast using self-leveling cement in a machined plastic mold. You can sort of see the tool marks on the bottom where some sort of a cavity would have been machined out of plastic, and then self-leveling cement would be poured in. Top surface nice and smooth, the bottom surface made by the mold, and the rocks would be demolded. Let's take a look at the large size. Large size rocks, much more in line with something that I'd usually be skipping. Same exact design, 3 finger hooks, radially symmetric around, with a nice big fillet on the leading edge and a small hook on the trailing edge. Just like the small stones, we've got a nice convex bottom surface. If you put this on the table, we can see how much it rocks. I'd say this is about 2 to 3 millimeters of rocker overall. Unlike the small stones, these have a slight radius on that bottom edge, maybe a 1 millimeter. Very consistent, again, made in a precise machined plastic tool to cast these. And the bottom geometry, as you can see from the reflections, is incredibly smooth and consistent. You can see slight tool marks, but absolutely nothing that the water is going to feel, especially compared to some of my cast concrete stones. Top surface is smooth, and again, these are cast with a self-leveling cement. So this is just made by pouring it into the mold. This rock, I can feel a slight meniscus on the edge from that sitting a little bit deeper in the mold. Some of them sit perfectly flat, but again, that top geometry is not as critical. The weight of these is on the lighter side, especially compared to some of the rocks that I've been skipping. So it's going to definitely take a much lighter throw, but we'll have to see how they skip and play around with some testing. Let's skip some rocks. All right, so I'm going to warm up with some of these little teeny ones, see how they go. Use the small cast stones in self-leveling cement. Very satisfying skip. Very satisfying. With that small mass, I really can't put a ton of throwing force behind it yet. We're going to step up to the larger size self-leveling stones from SkipperStonesMaker. See how they go.
convex bottom gives it a lot of consistent bounce, and it seems to make it go quite straight, so rather than sticking, it just bounces along. Hang of these now that I've tossed a few. So pretty pleased with these rocks. I'm gonna try another one upside down and see how that goes. Pretty risky, but tempting. Nope. They're not meant to be thrown upside down. Interesting. Stuff. Warm up with a few plaster triangles, see how those compare. Here's a round finger hook stone. See how this one does. I can skip this with a concave on the bottom. Hopefully it bounces nicely. Had that bounce at first, but then it definitely suctioned on. Rounds, we're gonna skip those flat bottom down. A lot of curve on those stones compared to the new ones I'm testing today. I think it's because of the rocker bottom, they go straighter because they're sticking less, whereas these are the flat bottom, they need to be thrown really, really fast, bounce really well. And without enough of that, they just stick, turn, and lose a lot of that speed. This is a lighter weight round rock. There we go. So that had two really mellow champers on the edge, so it's sort of like rockered in 2 dimensions instead of all 3. I think that design has some promise. Plastic triangles. These are performing really well lately. Water lilies. Oh yeah, frame. All right, let's toss a few plastic triangles for comparison. Weirdly bouncy on that one. Again, switching between weights and styles of stone is always challenging. That's good. It's one of those too heavy ones. That's the arm. Did I just like nail a fish or something? That was very unexpected. We'll have to look and see what happened to that rock. Very possible there was a bass cruising around and it just went for it, or the rock just went chaotic. So, not surprisingly, still had some really good contenders from the classic triangle rocks. Actually, some of the plaster ones were the furthest ones today. I wasn't throwing the heavy iron sand ones as great, but the new triangles from SkipperStonesMaker, pretty fantastic. Really nice, consistent skip. That surface finish is definitely a huge part of what's going on here, along with a really unique edge profile. I think what's going on is these three triangular cutouts here are helping the rock release as it goes along the water. So each rotation it has three of these little release points that help it sort of kick off. That combined with the smooth surface finish and rockered bottom are making it so it just breaks free really easily, spends very little time stuck on the water, covers a lot of distance given how lightweight it is. So what I'm going to try right now is setting up the camera and get some really close shots, hopefully with some high speed, and we can do some analysis on what's going on with these rocks. It's gonna be a little tricky to get this right, so it might take a few tries, but the conditions are great. Beautiful morning, nothing better to do, so let's capture some in-depth details of how these rocks are skipping. Alright folks, it's been a good day skipping. Had to test out these new stones. Really enjoying the build quality and performance of these, so I'll have to do some more experimentation coming up. Still getting some decent throws out of the old triangles and plaster rocks. I have noticed that the plaster stones, if they sit in there
for a couple days, they start to just dissolve. So definitely not as strong as the cement rocks. But yeah, good day's skip. Beautiful day out here in the lagoon. Starting to get pretty hot and a little bit windy, so time to change venues and probably get out for some swims in the White River. I'll skip you next time.